Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Turned Out a Punk Classics, a show where we take old episodes of Turned Out a Punk that have been lost from the internet and return them to their previous glory by sticking them back on the feed. You can find this podcast on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and all other forms of social media. Well, that's pretty much it. At Turned Out a Punk. You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Damian. I play in a band. More information can be found at fuckedup.cc. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy another TOAP classic.
Thank you. Nate, thank you for coming on and being on the show.
Thanks for having me, dude.
As I told you on email, you've been in a lot of bands, but definitely three that, meant a lot to me and mean a lot to me. But also, I guess the first place, your face is burnt into my memory as one of the key faces in my life in formative years of getting into hardcore, because
that's horrible. I'm sorry.
Well, no. Here's why. Because it's a great face.
I don't even like looking at
that. Sounded so mean, but no, I love your face. I love it, and it's because it's when I made the summer I made the transition from being a pop punk kid who liked hardcore into a hardcore kid. That's still pop punk. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, who doesn't?
But that summer I started hanging out at Chris Callahan's house, and they had a photo on the wall there. I think Joel, I can't remember who took it, who lived there, but it was of you making the craziest live face in Jesuit at a live show. And it was just I don't remember too much about that house, the floor plan and things like that.
Was that the one that was 3 stories and Chris lived in the attic?
Yeah, that's that house, exactly.
I slept in that attic.
And do you remember that picture of you on the wall?
No.
Okay, good.
I mean, that picture could have been before I...
That could have been.
Yeah. Could have been from the day that I slept
because, would you have stayed there when Converge?
Maybe.
Would have been when you were in Converge?
Yeah.
Because I don't think did Jesuit ever make it to get... Well, you know what? We're going to get there.
We'll get there.
We're going to get there.
We'll get there.
Let's start off the way we start them all off on this show, which is, how'd you get into punk?
Combination of two things. The first being... my older cousin, who gave me a tape that one side had Black Flag, Who's Got the 10.5, and the other side had Anthrax, Among the Living. And then I right about the same time period, I ordered Thrasher Skaterock Volume 1.
So how would you have been at this point, do you think?
Oh man, 10?
Oh
11?
Wow.
10 or 11?
That early.
Maybe, probably 11.
So it would have been skateboarding, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, my cousin skated.
Yeah.
He kind of was like, this is what skaters listen to, man. Here. And we were on a family trip, and I had to ride in the back seat of the car with him, and he had his Walkman, and was like, listen to this. And he pressed play, and I had no fucking clue what I was listening to. I'm like, the drum beats don't even match up with the guitar. If you've never heard that stuff before, you really have to train your ear to hear where the one is and how the guitar parts and the drums match up.
Well, that's diving to Black Flag at the deepest end, too.
Oh yeah, the live records are still my favorite Flag records too. Because you hear them.
Yeah.
But that was it, man. And then at first I was I don't know about this shit, and then, but I was I gotta figure out what's going on here because it doesn't make any fucking sense to me. And the more I listened to it, the more I was alright, I still don't get it. I need to get another record and figure out what's going on with these guys. And then I guess I'm still kind of doing that.
So where did you go from there? You got that Skaterock compilation. I guess you were reading Thrasher.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the story for most dudes my age in the 80s. It was because they used to have the California Cheapskates ads in the back that would have all the boards and a couple of skate t-shirts, and then at the bottom would be all band t-shirts, and you'd be corrosion of conformity. Look at that skull. All right, I gotta get all the stuff with the coolest skulls. I'm getting that, And so I guess that's what really did it, is just skateboarding opened the door to all that. Thrasher magazine used to have notes from the underground.
Pusshead would be.
Yeah, Puss Zone and all that stuff. And so I guess that's probably exactly it.
Do you remember any of the bands on that you were fan of on the Skate Volume 1? Who's on
the Big Boys are on it. Dude, the version of Red Green on that is so much better than the other version.
Yeah.
And like, the Big Boys were on it. The Scoundrels, which was Tony Alva's band.
Okay.
Faction was on it.
Faction definitely. Is Free Beer? Or
no. Riot 303 was on it. They were Canadian.
Canadian band. Yeah, that's right. They were always like, I've always wondered.
And they became something else.
They became, it's Riot 303 became Personality Crisis, or?
No, it was something like Aggression? Was it Aggression?
No. Riot Aggression's from Oxnard, California.
It started with it ended with an ION.
Oh, did they become?
I can't remember, man.
Man, now. Oh, did they become Forbidden Dimension?
Maybe.
I think they might have.
Maybe they split up. There was another band though that had an LP, and I have it, and I can't remember what it is.
I think they might have become Forbidden Dimension, kind of like a surf rock, more instrumental band. It's like
this was like a thrash band, like a crossover thrash band.
Jeez, now I'm gonna have to check it out.
I can't remember what they.
But yeah, Riot 303 I was always because they're like a fairly obscure 7-inch only band.
They're fucking awesome.
They're awesome.
Murder the Prime Minister.
How did they get on that comp? You know?
I don't know, man. Well, I mean, people used to send demos to Thrasher.
Yeah, I guess that would have been it.
You know, and like that was a real, like the skate community then was tiny.
Yeah.
You know, so like, I'm sure that they weren't getting a lot of submissions. You know.
Yeah, that's true. I guess like is Los Olvidados.
Oh yeah, Los Olvidados.
Sorry, worst pronunciation of anything.
That's all right. They were great too.
They're fucking awesome too.
Yeah.
But where did you go from there?
Man. I don't really know, to be honest. Like, it was all kind of a whirlwind. Because then, like, I got to middle school, and, like, there were older skater kids in my neighborhood that every now and then would be like, here, listen to this, or check this out. And then, like, once I got into middle school, then it was, like, I met other kids that were into punk, and it was just trading tapes and whatever. And that's kind of, I mean, like, you know, the classics, Bad Brains, Minor Threat, that sort of shit. Do you remember your like first like record store experiences, or would you go to a show first? Like, what was your first kind of like active engagement? Well, first record store experience was probably buying tapes in the mall.
Yeah, of course.
You know? So like an actual punk record store. There was this little hole in the wall record store at Virginia Beach called Stonehenge that was not much bigger than this room that we're in right now, which is basically a closet.
Yeah.
And, he had, like, one rack that had zines and tapes and 7 inches, and then, like, you know, literally, like, about as big as like, a desk of LPs. And I would just go in there, and the dude was... I mean, I don't want to sound like a jerk, but he was probably strung out, and I got my mom to take me there a couple times, and she was like, what the hell is this place? But he would always, I think his name was Stan, and he used to turn me on to stuff, or like he'd be like, you know, you heard this band, they're from here, check them out, like, buy this demo, you know, and like, it was a cool place, probably a drug front. But
it's amazing when you're older, the curtain gets peeled back a little bit, and you realize how insane some of these situations you put yourself in.
Man. Yeah, like really, really volatile people that was around all the time. It was just like, oh, they're cool. They like punk.
Who are like some of the Virginia Beach like classic bands? Graven Image? Were Graven Image from there?
Yeah, Dead Aim.
Dead Aim.
Oh man, Menace. Like as far as hardcore goes, there.
Or even punk, you know? Like,
yeah, I mean, there was, like... I mean, Candy Snatchers, but they came later.
Oh, yeah, Candy Snatchers, that's right.
Then with metal, it was, like, OTT. At War was from Northern Virginia, but they were always playing...
At War, that's it. Were they on Wild Rags, or were they on, like, New Renaissance or something?
New Renaissance.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
that band's sick.
Yeah, they're great, man. So we had a lot of crossover stuff going on, which... there was like a hardcore scene, but a lot of the hardcore hardcore bands never really broke out. Like there was a band called Grog that was pretty awesome. They were a couple years older than.
Did they put anything out in any of these bands?
Grog put out a 7-inch. OTT were a thrash band that put out 2 demos, and they're still awesome, and they still stand up.
That's
like,
awesome.
If you Google it, you'll find Over the Top is what they were called.
Yeah.
And they had a song called Dead Bodies, and that was their hit. And whenever they played Dead Bodies, shit went off. Yeah, Dead Aim, I think, did a 7-inch.
Yeah.
I think Graven Image did
Graven Image definitely did a 7-inch.
Yeah.
So what was your first, like, shows at that point?
God's Will. God's Will was another band.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm sorry, what was the question?
So what was your first show?
First show... AF and the Vandals?
Okay.
But I should preface this by saying I had no idea who either of them were.
Still, like, that's, you know...
And it wasn't like, hey, we're going to a show. Like, there's a whole backstory here. It kind of doesn't really count.
Okay, well, what's the story?
Okay, my mom's best friend when we were growing up used to live right by the Virginia Beach ocean front. And at the ocean front, you had the Atlantic Beach Club, you had the Peppermint Beach Club, and a couple other spots that did shows every now and then. And
I think I've heard of Peppermint Beach Club, like
Peppermint
and stuff.
Yeah, the Peppermint like was a really long running nightclub in Virginia Beach.
Yeah,
but it was also near. She also lived near the original Wave Riding Vehicles, which was like a surf and skate shop. And I used to, we'd go visit, and I'd bring my skateboard, and I'd go skate down to Wave Riding Vehicles with my allowance and buy some stickers and shit like that.
Yeah.
Or buy a Thrasher. And so I went. That's what I did. I went down there one day, and there were some older kids from my neighborhood there, and they recognized me, and they were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm buying this fucking Bones sticker," you know. and they were like, "Come with us, dude. Come with us." And it was only like 4 blocks away, and I was like, "Okay." And we went to this show, and like, I just walked right in because I was a little kid, and they just figured I was like someone's little brother.
Yeah.
And it was the most terrifying experience of my life. Because at that point, Virginia Beach was just overrun with skinheads.
Yeah.
And it was just everybody in there looked like they would eat me.
Is there a video of that show? Like, I remember an AF Virginia Beach show that's just like a crazy...
There were multiple AF Virginia Beach shows.
I'm sure.
But...
what year would have this been? Like, what era of Agnostic Front?
87?
Wow, so cause for a
87, 88? I don't know, man. Honestly, I can't even remember. And so, so I went, and I was in there for all of 45 minutes before I got fucking totally freaked out and just left. I waited till none of those dudes could see me, and then I left. Yeah. Because I was terrified, and I was afraid I was going to get in trouble for going.
I think if I was an adult being at that show, I would be terrified now.
Yeah, it was so different back then.
It was, yeah.
But then the next show I went to after that I actually was like, I'm going, was Agent Orange.
Okay, crazy. In Virginia Beach as well.
Yeah, and that was fucking awesome.
So what was, do you remember, like, at that point, did you start going to shows whenever you could? How old have you been at Agent Orange? You've been, like, 12 or something?
12 or 13, something like that.
Okay.
That all runs together.
Yeah,
I had a really hard time placing what year.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, for sure.
But yeah. I didn't really start regularly going to shows for a couple more years because it was just not really feasible. Yeah. But, probably about 14, 15, I started really going to shows.
Were you familiar with Agent Orange before you went and saw them?
Yeah, I had the tape. It was the cheapest one I could get at the record store. It was the one where they did all covers. Like, they had Secret Agent Man and, who else was on it? Like, Shaking All Over, I think it was called When You Least Expect It or something. Okay. It was the blue one with Agent Orange and pink.
I definitely have seen that cover. It's probably on, like, Triple X Records or something.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
But, so that's what I knew. Like, I didn't even know...
Bloodstains, right?
Yeah, I didn't know any of that stuff. I just knew the covers.
It's awesome that, because I'm definitely the same way in the pre-internet world, where you could be into the bad record of a band, and it was, fine. Yeah. You know? Well,
it was so hard to find punk records then that you were just like, punk record, I'm buying this, I'm into it. Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's good.
Well, especially...
I remember having, 76% uncertain records, who no one fucking knows who they are.
I like that first band rules! We played actually a show with them a couple years ago.
Are you serious?
Us and the Vivian Girls.
Whoa.
And 76% Uncertain in Connecticut in 2008.
That is bizarre.
I know. And also they were the backing band on the first Shelter record.
Were they?
Yeah, Ray, 76% Uncertain playing all the instruments.
I had no idea.
The reason it's all fresh in my mind is I just read that New York hardcore book.
Wow.
And
I haven't read that. It's Tony Redman one?
Yeah. I love Tony. Like, I love that dude, and like, it's a funny book. There's some like really cool stuff in it.
Sick. Yeah, I gotta get that.
But sorry, and so from Agent Orange, you kind of like, I guess, kind of go to shows intermittently. And
like, you know, the ones that I could sneak out and get to.
Yeah.
I would, and then the ones that I could convince my mom to take me to, my parents, like, they took me to see the Ramones a couple times.
Yeah.
Like, I got to see the Ramones with Dee Dee, which was pretty rad.
That's awesome.
You know, shit like that.
Yeah. So you were going to shows pretty early.
Yeah, my parents were pretty cool about that stuff. Like, they were always into music. They had records and shit. Like, my mom really loved Stephen King. Okay. And Stephen King loves the Ramones and stuff, and so she was always kind of a little more open-minded to it. When they saw some of the people I started hanging around with, they got a little concerned. But overall, they were really cool about shit.
So what were like, did you get any chance to see any of that hardcore stuff, I guess, at that point? Were any of those bands like the...
Very few.
Yeah,
very few, because like, a lot of those shows were in places I just couldn't get to or didn't know about. Menace was a band that I saw a bunch. They were kind of like a crossover band, and they used to play all the skate contests, and that's how I used to see them play.
Yeah.
There were a few other bands that I saw, but nobody really know.
Sorry, so like
Grog and Menace, they played all the shows, and then there was like a whole other little thrash metal scene too that has, you know, like a bands I already mentioned.
Over the top and stuff.
Yeah.
So you started going to shows more at 14, 15?
Yeah.
So what was the scene like at this point for you?
15, that was 1990. Okay. So that's kind of like that's when the Revelation stuff started happening.
Yeah.
And those bands started touring, and like, so, you know, that's kind of when New York hardcore started being like the thing to be into.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, Sick of It All, or like AF, or, you know, Sheer Terror, somebody would come through town, and that was the one you had to go to. But at the same time, that's also after the Revolution summer stuff started happening in DC, so that's when like Shudder to Think and Jawbox and all those bands started playing a lot. So, and we were fairly close to DC, so we saw all those bands. Oh, and Gwar. We used to see Gwar all the time because we were so close.
And they're like Death Piggy, right? Like that was.
I never saw Death Piggy.
Yeah.
That was before my time.
Yeah.
But Gwar, they were like
happening at that point.
Like, I mean, me and some dudes I went to high school with, or junior high school, I guess at the time, like it would be like, Gwar's playing, we're going, you know, and like.
What were those shows like then? Were they like as elaborate?
Fucking awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Like. Because then you could get on the stage.
Yeah.
And they would, like, take people and put them through the meat grinder. Like, we would go through the meat grinder, and they'd pull you out and throw you back into the crowd. Like, it was fucking awesome.
That's awesome.
I love Gwar.
Yeah.
I really love Gwar. Like, they're... you know, every now and then you'll meet somebody that... Oh, Gwar. That, like, they're making fun of it or something. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Gwar is awesome.
Yeah, and just, like, so few pure escapes can be had now in life, you know?
I know, and that, like, now after having done a tour with them too and seeing how they operate, it's fucking impressive, man. Like, they are the most hardworking band I think I've ever met.
Yeah.
Like, they're awesome. And they're real as fuck, man. Like the coolest dudes you'll ever meet.
And then once again it comes all back to punk and hardcore, I guess, too, with those people. So Gwar would have been one of those bands at this point. Where did you kind of fall as a kid at this point? Are you kind of like going to both of these types of shows? Or all these types of shows?
At that point, I think I came after the point where it was like you're into metal or you're into punk.
Yeah.
You know, like at that point, crossover had happened. You know, DRI was touring with fucking Nasty Savage. Oh, cool. It's cool to be into this stuff. Whatever. You know, like I didn't really see much of a difference. And so, and not that many shows happened. Mm-hmm. So you just went to every show that you could, at least.
Yeah, I guess it's like before you could be as picky.
Yeah. It's so different.
It's so different.
Yeah. And then, like, probably by, like, 91, things really started to change where I lived. And, like, all the shows kind of left Virginia Beach and moved to Norfolk to the King's Head Inn because all the venues got shut down. And that is probably, well, right before the King's Head Inn, there was this other place called Crossroads.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, no, I guess they were around the same time, but, and those two places, I guess, were probably my most formative years when it came to, like, going to shows and then playing shows and, like, being really involved in the music scene.
So were you playing music at this point? Like, already? Were you playing
Kind of. I mean, I had a guitar and, like, tried fucking around in my friend's garage with, you know, with whoever else had any sort of instrument.
Yeah. So was Lift your first band, or did you do something before that?
Holy shit. Yes, it was.
Okay.
Wow.
You brought it up in interviews. That's how I know it.
Like, that was not a good band. Please don't ever look that up.
I think there's also a German prog band called Lift, too.
Probably. Well, there was also a band from Virginia called The Lift, made up of, like, dudes who were in their 40s who tried to sue us and made us change our name. We got these, like, cease and desist letters where, literally, I'm, like, 15, like, what? What the fuck is this? Who are these guys?
So, how did you start playing music? How did you get a band and start?
Well, you know, little side note, like, rewind.
Yeah.
When I was in, right after I finished 7th grade, my mom got a job in Georgia. We moved the family down to Atlanta for 1 year.
Okay.
And that was probably the year when I really got the most consumed with punk and music in general, because I didn't really have a lot of friends, and it was like, you know, there was skateboarding by myself,
Yeah.
and then there was going to the mall every week with my allowance and buying a new record, and that's kind of when I got the most absorbed in it all. But then we came back. I had also I had a friend who had a guitar in 8th grade when we lived in Atlanta, and he showed me how to play a couple things, and then we were only down there a year, it didn't work out, we moved back, and that's when I was like, I want a guitar. Let's go on, that's my jam. That's the one.
I think, like, that band, like, I think I like that first Accused record before Blaine sings, I liked too, but, like, that's one of the greatest vocalists of all time.
His voice,
like,
I love. Yeah.
Well, I guess now we're recording again. Oh, okay. Can you check yourself? Just tap your mic again. Yep, perfect.
All right, good.
Yay, Nate. Thank you. Now we're in the quieter quarters of your guys' bus.
Well, shared bus.
Shared bus. I meant the shared accommodations.
I would just like to preface this by saying it worked out to be cheaper than taking our van and getting a hotel room every night.
I think it would definitely be. And you know what? This is like, man, we got to find 3 bands that could tolerate touring together.
Dude, it's fucking awesome.
Oh, it'd be awesome.
This is our first bus tour in the States, and it's like, I never knew it could be like this.
I only did one time when we were opening the Bronx, and I left there. I left fucked up and just went on their bus for the rest of the tour. I'm like, see you guys.
Hey,
it's way more better.
You got to survive.
So I guess we were at Lyft, and you kind of forming Lyft and stuff.
Yeah. So what were we? At that point we had, like, you know, we saw Shelter.
Yeah.
And I mean, we'd seen other local bands and stuff, but I think that was the first time we saw a band where we were like, that was more than just watching a band play some songs.
And they were all like pro musicians by that point, right? Like, I guess all those
they
bands
were
that
really
toured
fucking good, man. Like, they knew how to put on a show.
Yeah.
And then that's, like, you know, we started finding out about, like, Four Walls Falling and Avail started, like, Avail put out Satiate pretty soon after that.
Mm-hmm. Had you heard that what's the first 7-inch?
The first 7-inch.
On Blind Sun Records?
No, it's on Sunspot.
Sunspot Records.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and Tim didn't even sing on that record.
No.
He played drums.
Yeah, he plays drums on it, yeah.
Soon, what the fuck was it called?
It's called, like, Why Say...
It was a bunch of words that don't make a sentence.
Yeah. I do know that there's a red vinyl version, a gold vinyl version, and a black vinyl version.
Yeah, I had the gold vinyl version.
I think I have a gold vinyl version myself. But, like, so they were... I guess you would have seen them kind of after that point and kind of making...
Yeah, very, very soon after that,
okay.
Actually. Like, that's when we really started getting more interested in... Like, at that point, we knew about the national bands that were touring because of Thrasher and stuff like that. And then that's, you know, I think that show was a turning point for me and most of my friends, because that's when it was like,
we were old enough to go to travel and go to shows, and people had flyers for shows, and they were like, check out these guys, and we're like, I never heard of these guys, but let's go, you know, and like, so yeah, Avail and Four Walls kind of ended up being the big kids on the block in Virginia, and like they were the bands that really had a huge influence on me and all of my friends.
When did Avail become like kind of that shit hot live band? Was it like kind of by the second record, or was it really by that first?
Satiate, like they were untouchable, man.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've said this before in other interviews, but you know, I don't think any other band ever really influenced me the way Avail did, and they were the band that brought everybody together.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, you know, the punks, the skinheads, the metal, everybody came to see Avail, and it was always a good time. And it ended up with half of the crowd naked.
They're probably one of the best live bands I still this day I've ever seen. I didn't see them until, like, later. By the time they made it up here, it was like, you know, but 4 a.m. Friday, I still stand by being my favorite Avail record.
Every one of their records is great.
Yeah, they don't have a bad record.
I think Dixie's probably my favorite.
Yeah, Dixie's, like, Model is, like, an untouchable song.
Yeah.
And they're, I love that band. And it's so funny because they're a band that, like, I'm surprised, maybe they just don't want to, but I'm surprised they haven't had that second act. You know, where people, like, rediscover them and be like...
Yeah, it's got to happen.
It's got to happen because they're just too good. Like, especially, like, you hear the bands that got popular from that more kind of, like, driving, leather-faced, kind of gruff punk stuff, like Against Me and Hot Water Music and all these kind of bands that kind of, like, got that next level of cult
status.
And
if Avail hadn't happened, none of those bands would have happened.
Yeah, and Avail's, like, that band's, like, roots. It's like, oh, they're so good.
I mean, there's so much more to it than just the music. Too.
Yeah.
Like, they set the model of what a modern touring punk hardcore band was.
Yeah.
Like, I'd say them and Neurosis were the two bands that set that model. Before them, nobody really knew how to do it and make it work. And, like, they were the band that, you know, even Converge, we looked at them and we were like, they're doing it right. They've figured it out. Like, do what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And it, you know, still to this day, like, I feel that way about them.
They're all like, yeah, because there's like, it's almost like a band's band. You get these bands that are like, the bands, I say Converge is that for someone like us, too.
Yeah.
Like a band that you look at that's been like, you know, able to kind of make it work in this world where there's just, you know, it's hard to make it work as like anyone that comes from punk and tries to maintain any sort of connection to that beyond a certain point.
Yeah, man, I feel like if you want to make it work... Oh, sorry.
No, that's my fault. I think I fell.
Fixing the microphone, people.
Yeah, there we go.
All right.
This is where you know we're in trouble when I'm the sound tech.
Yeah, hey. Well, better off than if I was.
Probably not. You can play an instrument.
Hardly. I can jump with an instrument.
I can't even do that. Like, if I did that, I'd probably put it up my eye. Sorry. But, like, yeah, like, you need these kind of heroes that you look at.
Well, what I was saying, though, is if you want to make it work, you can make it work.
Yeah.
You just have to be realistic about what is possible, really. That's all. What's up, Tampa?
Interview time?
Hey, everybody.
Hey, man,
this is Thomas Lindberg from At the Gates and Dysphere and Skit System.
Hey.
I met you years ago at a show we played in Sweden. I played in a band Fucked Up.
Oh, you do? Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I know you.
Good to see you.
Yeah. Sorry.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
How was that Apple Hotel? Was that good?
It was okay.
It's one of those.
One of those.
Yeah.
It was better than a Formula One.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
You know, anytime you can say that about a hotel, you know. I'm glad you
Formula One has good showers, though.
Yeah, I don't know if Apple Hotel even has... Do we have showers?
I think there was a shower, but at Formula One, the shower smells like pee always.
Well, that's because I pee in it.
Yeah, so do I.
It's clean everywhere. Oh, nice seeing you, man.
Hey, great to see you, too.
Great. Cool. Yeah.
Sorry if we're talking too louder.
No, did we wake you up?
A little bit of a throat thing.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I'll be lying down.
No.
I know I knew your face, but I couldn't really place it.
No, don't worry. Absolutely. We're doing a podcast.
He's all svelte now, too. He's like
I started smoking pot and I've lost 120 pounds.
That's great, man.
Yeah, I tell you,
I'm happy.
Ian Mackay led me down a garden path with his rhetoric.
He lied.
He lied.
But yeah, no.
I'll leave you guys.
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
Yeah.
Right on.
Take care, guys.
Sorry, as you were saying, you know, like there's a way to do it as a band, but like sometimes when you're kind of at these points in a band and you're trying to make it work, you're almost like you need those neuroses, you need those fugazis,
Yeah.
you know, you need those bands where you're like, well, they found a way.
Yeah.
But it's different now.
I think, well, it is different in both directions, I feel like, because
right.
you have, like, bands that became career bands
Yeah.
and, like, do everything by, like, the, you know, rock band major label model.
Yeah.
And then you have other bands that stuck to that kind of neurosis of Veil DIY model.
Tragedy is another one.
Yeah,
you know.
Tragedy is... we have certainly kept it going, you know, and kept it as DIY as we could, but Tragedy, like, I'm amazed by Tragedy.
Yeah,
amazed.
Like how much, like, I wonder how many things they've turned down.
Yeah.
Like, how many just,
because
like,
they can. It's so awesome.
Yeah.
That's what I love about them,
Yeah.
you know?
So, at which point, I guess, do you guys start playing shows right away, kind of after seeing Shelter? You guys are playing shows with these bands and part of that scene?
Yeah, recorded a demo, and, like, you know, we couldn't really break into what was happening in our area at the time.
Yeah.
And so it was like, we just, honestly, like, one guy, this guy Joe, who ended up being, like, the biggest promoter in our area for the longest time, he took mercy on us and, like, actually let us play a show. And then, you know, like, we got all the kids from our high school to show up, and then he was like, oh, well, you can do another show. And so then, like, we got, like, some of our other friends started bands, and so we just started doing shows with just our friends' bands.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we started writing letters to bands that we liked, and started getting bands from out of town to come, and it just turned into, we kind of, like, on the heels of that older hardcore and...
building a scene.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm certainly not crediting myself or my friends or our generation, but, like, we kind of, I don't know, ushered in, like, the younger generation for that time period.
You need that, too, right? Because, like, you get these older generations, and they become established, they're playing bigger venues, they're, like...
Yeah.
You need those younger bands to kind of build that next scene.
Yeah, and, I mean, like, you know, we're talking about the early 90s, so, like, all of that, all of the, you know, legendary shit that you hear about was all gone.
Yeah.
You know, it was like you had a couple of, like, you had Shelter. You had, you know, maybe the Cro-Mags would get back together for a month.
Yeah.
And do some shows, and they might show up.
Yeah.
You know, like, but there wasn't a lot really happening. At least in Virginia, there wasn't a lot happening in that realm. You know, we wanted to stage dive, so we just started booking our own shows.
But I think it's funny you say that, like, that all that legendary stuff was gone now, and because that, to me, I know what you're saying, because, like, I think of, like, you know, the legendary, like the AF Cro-Mags, you know, period, or, like, Youth of Today, everyone's kind of going late 80s New York, is kind of over, but, like, it's funny because people now canonize that 90s period. You know, there's, like, a whole new wave of kids.
It's so weird to me.
And I guess that, you know, I probably imagine, like, I know, I remember talking to, like, older people that were around when Youth Crew kind of happened in Toronto, and I'm like, yeah, Judge and Turning Point.
Like, that shit sucks.
They were like, that sucks. How can you be into that, man?
Here, listen to Poison Idea.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
You know, you must have been hanging around Simon Harvey in Toronto, too, back then.
And it was the same everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Man. You know, but yeah, so I guess it's like you do need that younger group of kids to kind of set up that new scene, and now that new scene that you guys set up is canonized, you know? Like, there's a lot of bands that came out of that scene. And, like, a lot of weird stuff. Like, the fact that, you know, I don't think people would associate Channel with Hatebreed, you know? And you guys were on Stillborn.
Yeah, we were Jamie's second release.
Record.
Well, second?
I think Stillborn 001 might be the Hatebreed demo.
Oh, no, Hatebreed wasn't together yet.
Oh, sorry, the Jasta...
No, it might have been the Jasta demo. Yeah, he was in Jasta.
But he wasn't on the 7-inch, so maybe the Jasta demo.
Yeah.
But I think it's 002 because I looked at the back of the 7-inch before I came.
I think it was 002, but it came out before the first record, first release was supposed to come out because
classic hardcore.
Yeah, but yeah, and that was wild. That was one of the we started Channel after Lyft broke up because
how long was Lyft together? Probably
I don't know, 2 years, 3 years, high school.
Yeah,
and then right, probably senior year, we kind of that's when Rorschach and Born Against and Citizen's Arrest and all that stuff was happening, and that was for me. It was oh,
the shit.
What is this stuff?
Yeah.
And then the No Escape demo came out, and I was like, fuck, holy shit, I want to be in a heavy band, you know. And then on the flip side of that, Clutch had just started playing. They put out that 7-inch on Inner Journey Records, and I was like, what the? And actually, Clutch's first tour was with Four Walls Falling.
That's the thing about Inner Journey Records. You bring up Clutch touring with Four Walls Falling is mind blowing. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
but just for Inner Journey Records, that label put out a lot of shit that had real resonance years later. For a label that release Sub-Zero
Dunamis.
What's that band?
Step Aside was on
Step
Inner
Aside.
Journey. Yeah.
But of course, Clutch. Basically, Sub-Zero releasing Clutch are the bands that I kind of think were
They were the flagship bands.
Yeah, and all three of those bands kind of went on in 3 separate genres to kind of become, not super signposts or anything, but significant bands, especially Clutch.
Yes, Clutch especially.
Yeah.
And so that's when we were whoa, we got. I didn't even understand that it was possible to tune your guitar down. And then that's when I found out, and it was I'm doing that. And yeah, so then we started Channel, and the first show we played in a club was at the King's Head Inn, and it was with Josta 14 and Dive. And that was kind of a fateful night because Aaron Dahlbeck, who used to play guitar in Converge, was filling in for Dive.
And was Dive's drummer at that point Matt from Dropkick Murphys, or no?
Yeah.
So that's in that room right there, you have members of Converge, and you have members of Hatebreed, and you have members of Dropkick Murphys.
Yep, and Greg from Red Sparrows.
Oh yeah,
was in Josta.
That's right.
Yeah, so
you got a lot of bands that kind of go on.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think. I never thought about that before, but yeah. So we played. Jamie came up to me right afterwards and was like, "I'm putting out your 7-inch. Holy shit!"
Yeah,
and we were just like, "Really? Whoa!" You know, I didn't even know that could happen. You know,
this is the music dreams that they've been telling me.
Yeah, and the Channel demo was actually the live recording of that show.
Oh wow! So you didn't even have a demo?
No, nothing. He watched this and he was like, "I'm going to put out a 7-inch for you guys," and then. Yeah, that was 92, 93? 93. Okay. Must have been 93.
94? I don't know, maybe 93 when you guys recorded, but I think 90...
It came out in 94, but 94, that show happened in
93. Yeah.
And so, I've been friends with Jamie since then. Aaron was my introduction to Converge.
Yeah.
A lot of crazy shit happened. So we made a demo from that live recording, I don't know, a few months later... something like that. The Seaweed Into Another tour happened.
Oh, yeah.
And then that came through, and we went, and I was just talking to the dude at the merch table for Seaweed, because I don't even remember what shirt he was wearing. And then he was asking me about, I was wearing a hardcore shirt, and he was like, "Oh, you're into them, blah, blah, blah." And he was like, "Oh, my name's Ron, dude." And I gave him our demo. And then I got a letter... I don't know, 3 weeks later, it was Ron Gardapi.
From Brotherhood?
From Brotherhood.
That is awesome!
And he was like, "I do this label called Overkill. I fucking love your demo. I want to put out your record." And then, so, we were going to do an LP on Overkill, but he stopped doing Overkill before that happened.
And that's another, talk about a label like Inner Journey. Overkill put out a lot of cool shit.
They put out Those Who Fear Tomorrow.
Yeah.
They put out The Promise.
Intent to Injury.
Yeah, fucking crazy, man. And so then that was how I... got a connection to all the Seattle people. So right after that, we get calls from Undertow. "Hey, we want to come play there on our tour." And so that was it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a wild, that really short period of time put me in contact, and I made friends with people who I'm still friends with to this day.
Yeah.
And we've all come up together, and it's pretty wild.
That era of, like, hardcore, kind of like I get in around 95, 96. I'm going to, like, fests and stuff and going to all that stuff. It's amazing how many people you meet and how many people are just doing shit. Like, everyone, if you didn't do a zine or do a label or have a band.
Yeah, you know, like, what were you doing?
What were you doing?
Yeah.
And it was just, everyone was like, I guess now it's easier to kind of, like, put yourself out there. But everyone was putting themselves out there in some way back then.
Yeah.
In a weird way.
It was wild. Because, I mean, it was still really small.
Yeah.
So it was just like, you know, what am I doing if I'm just showing up?
Yeah.
You know, like, I've got to contribute. I got to make myself part of this. Yeah.
So, I guess, like, so Channel, like, you guys do a second 7-inch, right?
We did. That our friend Brad put out on a label that he started.
Had you done any touring at this point? Like, I guess you had the connection with Ron in Seattle.
Yeah, we actually, Converge's and Channel's first tour was together.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, so, like, what, is that Converge first 7-inch era? Like the...
no, Halo.
Oh, Halo.
I think they got Halo on that, like, the week before the tour started.
Okay.
And so we toured together. We played the... Where did we play? I want to say... No, that was a different tour. I was going to say we played the Cleveland Festival with, like, Los Crudos and all those bands, but that was the next tour we did. But, yeah, Channel did a couple of tours and imploded, you know, because once... You know how it is, like, you have a band, you have a rad time playing local shows, or you go out of town once or twice, then you go on tour, and you really fucking see what being in a band is like.
Yeah, and especially at that level.
Yeah, and then that's when you really actually find out what the people you're in a band are actually like. And then, so we didn't last very long after that.
You guys...
But then we played our last show with Seaweed, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
How far did you make it? Where'd you guys make that show? Or was the last show with Seaweed in...
Oh, that was in Virginia. But we did a tour before that with Introspect, where we were supposed to get to the West Coast and hook up. Supposedly we were going to do shows with Strife on the West Coast. Oh. And you know how shit was back then. Yeah. Like, I talked to so-and-so, it's all set, you know? And I was like, all right, cool, let's go. And we got to, like, Arizona, and it was like, oh, yeah, that's not happening. And we were like, fuck, all right, well, let's turn around. But, you know, again, kind of symptom of that time, it was like, well, these bands are touring back that way. Call them up. Hey, can we just jump on your shows for gas money? And that's what we did.
Who'd you go out with on that way back?
It was Introspect.
Oh, it was Introspect.
From Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
But on the way back, we hooked up with...
on the way back, sorry.
Half Man?
Okay, yeah, from Pittsburgh?
Yeah, somewhere Central Coast.
Yeah.
And a couple other bands. I can't remember who they were.
That's all. So you get back and...
But on that tour, we played with Cop Out. We played with so many fucking awesome bands that, like, you know, just don't get any attention.
Cop Out, I think, like outside of Record Nerd, like, people don't realize, like, that's like the pre-His Heroes Gone.
Yeah, they were fucking awesome too, man. Holy
I never saw them live, but that 7-inch is like, it's fucking incredible. And the Cop Out Face Down Split 7-inch too.
We played with Cop Out. We played with Crudos. We played with fucking. Man, I can't even remember.
That's the thing. You're like talking about like the great era of hardcore that like earlier that had died.
Yeah.
But like right there, you mentioned like so many killer bands. Like the '90s. Maybe because there weren't as many killer bands, but the good bands always played together. And always, like, you could always see there were, like, you know, cool shit happening.
Yeah, the scene was really polarized then, too.
Yeah.
You know, you had, like, your mainstream hardcore, like your New Age Records, Revelation Records, and then you had, like, the other side of it, like your War Dance and, you know, fucking...
like the Born Against kind of...
Born Against, Gurn Blanston, like, scene. Vermiform scene, you know.
And then that kind of, like, gave rise to, like... the Lingua Armada, More Than Music Fest, kind of scene too.
Yeah. Oh, and then Heroin and the whole Gravity scene came out of that too.
And then Death from Above 1979 comes out of that.
Yeah, isn't that fucking so wild to think about, man?
I know it's like who would have thought that if you go back to like
the Yes,
like you go back to fests at that time, you have who would ever think in like some shitty Legion Hall in 1995, you have people that would kind of form the basis of alternative music for the next 25 years. Right?
Check this out. So, I mean, I'm sure you already know this, but like, a few years back, it was actually the same day that Converge and Fucked Up played FYF Festival.
Okay, yeah.
Tim and Eric played.
Yeah.
And I'm backstage getting ready to go on. Dude walks up to me. Hey, what's up, Nate? Didn't recognize him. Hey, what's up? He's like, Eric, how's it going? And I'm like, Eric Wareheim. Eric Wareheim? Like, I look at him and I'm like, I just didn't recognize him, but I knew the name. And he was like, I was in Introspect and Ink and Dagger. And I was like, I'd never put it together that was the same dude. And I was like, holy fucking shit, man. Like, that's amazing.
I know, it's amazing. Like, and I remember didn't he do comedy tapes back then? Or some weird freak out tapes? I remember like someone showing me some weird ass tape. Who knows what that
If he did, I never saw it. But I'm sure he did.
And was he in Elements of Need too?
He was. Or no.
He's in Introspect, not Elements of Need?
They had a split.
Yeah, okay, that's
But he had another band after that called I Am Heaven with guys from Frail.
Okay, that's maybe what I'm confusing.
Yeah. Wow, I can't believe I remembered that.
Well, you've dropped some science. Every time I see that dude anywhere, like I was at a Saturday Night Live party, and I went around. Sounds like the shittiest name dropping party, but I'm at this like Arcade Fire. We're playing. That's how we got invited, right?
Yeah.
So we're sitting with Richard, who, as you know, is like a cool hardcore dude, big Converge fan, awesome rad dude. So I'm sitting with him, and I'm like, Eric Wareheim's over there, and he's like, yeah, and I'm like, you know what band he was in? And he's like, what band? I'm like, Ink and Dagger. And he's like, no fucking way. And then at this point, some dude who I don't make eye contact with, like this other dude's behind me, and he's like, excuse me, did you just say Eric Wareheim was in a punk band? And I look over and it's Paul Rudd. And I'm like, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, like,
wow.
Do you know Eric Wareheim? He's like, yeah, I'm in his show sometimes. And I'm like, oh yeah. Like, I'm like, do you know what he's like, what do they sound like? I'm like, do you know Minor Threat? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, imagine if Minor Threat did like a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, probably,
A little bit of a Swizz influence.
A little Swizz influence there too, but like, I think that would probably come from like the tripping balls aspect, the Swizzy kind of side of things and the groovier side of the they went to.
How wild is that?
It's so weird. And it's so weird that he would even know Minor Threat too. But
man, Minor Threat
I guess you're right.
Fucking huge, man. That's like, if you grew up and were even remotely into underground shit at all in the States,
they would have been.
You would have known who Minor Threat was.
They play like to 8,000 people or something in California.
Yeah, I mean, like that's kind of like one of those
like
American,
flag.
I mean, it's just who they are.
Yeah. That's the thing. Is like when you hear someone mention like, "Oh yeah, I knew Black Flag back then." He's like, "Yeah, but I think they would have been pretty popular. Like they probably wrote about them in Spin."
Yeah, they did. They did. So,
but anyway, we totally got on a crazy digression there. But
that's cool.
You come back. That's what all this podcast is. It's crazy digressions. So you come back from that tour. Did Jesuit form right away, or?
Jesuit had actually started playing together before Channel broke up.
Really? Okay.
Like, I mean, in some
formation, yeah.
Yeah, just like we found out about blast beats, and then I was like, whoa, I gotta do that. And so then, like, basically everything that, like, I was like, I want to rip that off now.
Yeah.
And so,
every hardcore band ever has kind of done it.
So we fucked around with that for a little while. Then Channel broke up, and by that point, I kind of had all the pieces in place to start a new band. And at that point, I was getting pretty disheartened with what was happening in hardcore. I guess, as far as your really standard 5-piece band with a singer and here's the mosh part, here's the chug part, here's my song about how I'm angry that you do drugs or whatever, or preaching to the crowd about whatever political fucking whatever dumb shit was
of the moment.
Yeah. And everyone already knew, and I was like, this is fucking dumb. And that's about when I discovered Today's the Day and Dazzling Killman, and that's when the Dead Guy demo happened, and stuff like that, and I was just like, those guys, they're onto something. That's where I want to be. And so I just, by that point, I was just not into the hardcore scene anymore, even though I was still neck deep involved in it. I was just kind of like, I want to do something totally different, and so that's when Jesuit started. And the dude Brett, who I started Jesuit with, was like not a hardcore dude. Yeah. You know, so he was one of the first dudes I ever met who like listened to I Hate God and like was into that stuff. And he had a really fucking awesome band called Frame 313 from Virginia Beach that was like this super heavy, sludgy, like, you know, I Hate God kind of band. Yeah. And so I was like, let's fucking jam. And then that was Jesuit pretty much.
So Jesuit, you guys recorded quite a bit, right? Like 3 7-inches and a CD?
2 7-inches.
And a comp.
Yeah, like
Cavity and stuff?
Yeah, and then like the first 7-inch was actually enough material for an LP.
That's one on Reservoir, I guess?
Yeah, and then we put out a CD version of it that was basically, you know, could have been like a short LP.
That's one of like the first DIY, like Victory, non-Revelation, non-New Age records that I bought.
Oh,
CD.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
like I bought
crazy.
7-inches, but I just, for some reason, that one, I remember being in Berkeley visiting my friend and just being like at Amoeba, and they had it for sale. I bought that, and I guess there was also like the Corrupted Youth Crush split had just coming around that time.
Yeah, that was also on Reservoir.
And I picked that up at the same day on CD. Unfortunately, both fucking on CD, like a poser.
Hey, whatever.
No, I wish I had the vinyl, but I still have the CD though.
Well, I'm sure that you can find any Jesuit record in $1 fucking bargain bin.
No, I love Jesuit like that. I love that. You know, that band obviously. Channel I got into after the fact, but Jesuit was a band that I was into.
Thanks, man.
As it was happening, I guess, like as much as I, could be from Toronto, right, at the time. But you guys toured, right? And like
we toured a lot. Actually.
Yeah, and like, which brings me to, I guess we can go before that. Like, what were some of your first tours like with that band?
First tour again was with Converge.
Okay.
And
so what, like, did Converge or did just Bane record with Steve from Today Is the Day?
I don't know if Bane did. I know Converge definitely did.
I know Converge. I thought for some reason Bane did a record with him too.
They may have. I don't know.
Give Blood might have been recorded by him or something.
Really?
Or was it by Kurt? Or no? I don't remember. I remember like talking to them when the Swarm opened for him and them telling this crazy story about Steve having like a bag of like roadkill or something insane.
Who knows, man.
But that's the only reason I think that. But so did you see Today Is the Day at that point? Were you seeing this stuff? They were like one of your bands, I guess.
Yeah, I saw them on like when Willpower was out.
That band's so sick.
Oh man, untouchable.
So where did you go? Like, so you guys first tour with Converge.
Yeah.
Kind of like around North America, I guess.
It was mostly East Coast.
Yeah.
And it's funny enough, the show ended in Boston at the Middle East, and it was with AFI, who played under Jesuit.
Yeah.
And we only had a demo. So that was funny.
And even then, they would have had like 4 7-inches and 2 LPs out.
Yeah, people knew who they were.
I guess it's one of those the East Coast West Coast disparities.
I don't know. That was a wild show.
That definitely was wild. Was it people into them by that point? AFI?
Yeah.
So it was like, I guess they've been popular.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I didn't know who they were.
Yeah. I was like a huge fan. I saw them open for Rancid, and I still listen to AFI.
By that point, like the kind of poppy stuff to me was like, I'm not into
so alienating.
Yeah, well, growing up in Virginia Beach, that was what like the surf dudes who used to fight straight edge kids were into.
Yeah.
So we used to call them construction surfers. And so I got turned off to that stuff, even though I loved like Bad Religion.
Was there any bands from Virginia Beach, like any Epitaph kind of nitro bands from Virginia Beach?
There was one band that was great who might still be playing, called Lost Tribe.
Lost Tribe. Oh yeah, it sounds really familiar.
Henry Gutierrez, the pro skater for Sims, he played in that band.
Okay,
they were awesome.
Blam's from L.A. I guess there's some band from Virginia Beach I'm trying to think of, but I can't think of it anyway. So when did that tour with Dillinger Escape Plan and Botch happen, where you guys had the infamous? I guess,
oh God,
Toronto?
that was 98.
98. So this is like 3 years into or 2 years into
Jesuit. That was the tour that broke Jesuit. Okay. that was a big undertaking. We were like, we're gonna do a 2-month tour.
Yeah.
You know, it was stupid.
And Botch had a light guy. That was like
no, they didn't have a light guy.
They didn't have the light guy that
No,
way?
no, they did have lights, but like he had it all on a pedal board.
Oh, it was on pedal board. I remember them because it was in Who's Emma when the show came to Toronto, which you can tell
we didn't make it.
Didn't make it to that side of the joke.
Hey, but you know what? We did make it to Canada before that.
You had played Canada before.
Yeah, we did a tour with Acrid, Piebald, Ire, and another band from Virginia Beach called Canephora.
Okay.
And what was the band that became One-Eyed God Prophecy? Or the One-Eyed God Prophecy came out of? Drift?
Drift. Is it Drift or Jonah?
No, it wasn't. I don't know.
Oh, no. Did One-Eyed God Prophecy is Yannick from His Hero's Gone, I think, was in it. And was it the dude, they had the double 7-inch on Great American Steak Religion?
There was another band.
Uranus? Was it Uranus?
No, it wasn't Uranus. I wish it was Uranus. They were awesome.
What is the one I think it's Drift. I think you're right, maybe it's Drift.
It might have been Drift.
Okay.
But yeah, we did a tour that went like from Montreal or Quebec to Toronto and played like, every little fucking, every show was like, 40 people.
Yeah.
When it was like, why not just play 3 shows and have them all be good?
It was the logic back then,
Yeah.
Wow, I can't even imagine doing that tour. Like,
it was awesome, but it was in the dead of winter.
Yeah,
it was
pretty
brutal.
Cool. Totally. I think I've seen flyers for that show. I don't think I saw. I think did you? Wait a second. Did that show when you played Toronto happen in the basement of a laundromat?
Yes, it did.
I was at that fucking show. I had no idea that you guys played that show.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, I totally remember that show now.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the only time I saw Acrid.
Really?
Yeah. I never, because they were, like, shit was happening so much in the suburbs by that point.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
There was, like, a different scene downtown, and I was, like, not really.
Speaking of Acrid, I think Kyle's coming out tonight.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I see Kyle, quite a bit now and stuff.
So then we did the botched Jesuit Dillinger tour. Dillinger had just put out Under the Running Board.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, first show, they showed up, we played the Legion of Doom house, Scotty's house in Ohio, and it was like, I think, Millhouse and Silent Majority played.
Okay. Long Island represent.
Yeah, and
Rhode Island.
No, that was Long Island. Or Staten Island.
Staten Island.
And Dillinger opened it, and like we'd never seen them.
Yeah.
I only had a tape of that EP because it hadn't even come out yet. Like the dude Tom, who used to tour with them and manage them and stuff, like he gave it to me because he used to do shows. And I remember standing there with Dave Knudsen watching them because they were just swinging their guitars at everyone, like going ape shit, and we were like, what the fuck are these guys doing? Yeah. What is this shit?
Yeah, they played Toronto, and it was like the same, because there's like, and now it looks insane because there's like, a lot of people there, and it's like people are, but at that point it's like, 20 people in a basement.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're just like,
why are you trying to hurt that dude? He came to see you.
You're going to have to look this guy in the eye after the show, because he's like, there's only so many people in this show.
Yeah, I mean, they were incredible.
Incredible, yeah, absolutely.
And like, obviously we were like, whoa. But at the same time, we were like, also like, whoa.
Yeah. Because I guess like that show, that's the first show that Mike from Fucked Up was supposed to put on, or did put on.
Yeah.
Was that show and it was like, and you were the band that I really wanted to see. Like,
sorry about that.
No, hey, I'm not blaming you. Believe me. But so what happened? Like, that was the days, obviously, where you go to the border.
Yeah.
And you've got your story.
Yeah, and you've got your fake letter from
and you hope for the best.
Recording contract letter. Yeah, well, I'm sure everyone's heard these stories. But basically, went to the Detroit border, which was stupid.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have done that.
Well, no one blames you now.
Yeah. Showed up with our fake recording contract, saying that we were coming in to record a record on a Canadian label, and and stating that any merchandise we had was for promotional purposes only, and it was all to be given away. And so we pull up, and dude's like, "You have anything to declare?" And I was just like, "Well, what do you mean? Like, because I didn't know what it meant then."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, what do you mean? What are we supposed to declare?" And he was like, like firearms, drugs, alcohol, knives. Oh, no, nothing like that. We have our guitars and amplifiers and stuff, and then gave him the sheet of paper stating, all that stuff. He's like, okay, cool. Can you pull over here? I'm like, yeah, sure. Pull over. Can you step out of the van? Sure. And they opened up the van. I still to this day don't even understand what happened, but they just came over with carts, took everything out of the van, gear.
Yeah, they impounded it, right?
They impounded everything. Took everything, impounded the van, and they were just like, okay, you owe us $2,000. And we were like, for what? Because you tried to smuggle all this stuff into Canada. And we were like, what are you talking about? And we were literally like, we'll just leave.
Yeah.
No, you can't leave. We're like, fuck. So we just got stuck there. And, I think we were in the border office for like 12 hours or something. The show was over by the time we got out. And the only way we got out was finally Brian Benoit, who ended up playing in Dillinger and was in Jesuit with us, said fuck it and put it on his credit card that his parents gave him for an emergency while he was on the road. And he was like, fuck it, we'll just put it all on my credit card. So we put it on the credit card. We were like, all right, we missed the first show. We can make it to the second show, which I don't even remember where it was. So we just hauled ass through Canada, and we're like, we're going to make it.
They still let you into Canada?
Yeah, we got in.
You paid $2,000 to let you in?
Yeah,
that
was it.
Crazy.
We got shook down. So, hauled ass, we were like, we're going to make it to the next show. Got an hour or two up the road, traffic jam. Dead stopped on the highway. And we're like, okay, well this sucks, but whatever, we don't have to be there till tomorrow. And then, if you're in a traffic jam and the dudes driving trucks turn off the trucks and get out and they're talking to each other, you're not going anywhere for a while. So it turns out that a truck carrying plate glass had overturned, and it was just like glass everywhere, and the highway was shut down. We spent the night on the highway. Finally, literally, sun came up the next day. We're like, all right, if we just hustle, we're gonna make it. We'll be fine. Start driving, get, I don't know, another 2 hours. The rear suspension and both rear tires blow out on the van. We start spinning out of control, pull off the road. And then we're stuck. Call a tow truck where they have to, put the van up on a flatbed tow truck and tow us. And obviously there's not enough room for all of us to ride. So dudes had to hide in the van. They towed us to a Ford dealership that by the time we got there had closed. It was in the middle of nowhere, so we just spent the night at the Ford dealership in the parking lot.
Have you eaten anything at this point?
We did that night because we found a place that was called Restaurant.
Run to the restaurant.
Just said restaurant. That was it. Yeah. So we ate, and then
were you guys vegan and vegetarian?
I was vegan.
That must have been incredible.
Well, I stopped being vegan on that tour.
I can only imagine.
So, so then we spent the night, woke up the next morning, and, first people in line at the dealership go in. They're like, yeah, we can't fix that here. Are you fucking kidding me? So we had to call AAA again and get towed to some other place that was 60 miles away. We get towed there. They fix it. By this point, we've missed 3 shows, and we're like, all right. Literally, we just fucking bolted, made it to Montreal in time for the last show. Literally, in time to walk onto the stage and plug into someone else's gear and play the set. Made 1 show, played, completely spent all our band money, we're in debt, everyone was just broken and miserable. We crossed the border back into the States with Botch and Dillinger. Botch and Dillinger pull up in front of us and unload 8 dozen eggs on the van. And we were just like, I'm done. I'm fucking done. So then we played a show with the Swarm in Syracuse and played a few more shows, went home, and that was pretty much it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the worst tour.
It was bad.
I always heard you got detained at the border for 3 days.
No,
But I think this is worse.
It's way worse.
Yeah, I think being at the border for 3 days would suck, but what you went through was kind of way worse.
Oh man, it was awful. It was awful.
Holy, so you guess that was it, right?
Yeah, everybody was like, I'm through with this shit. And then, like, we got back from the tour, and Brian, they call it, like, the dude who was playing second guitar, and Dillinger was leaving, and, you know, Brian knew a good thing when he saw it, and they were just like, we're looking for someone else to play, and Brian was like, right here, I got it, I'm through with these fools. And so he joined Dillinger, and then right when I think it may have been before the Converge Today is the Day tour was before that tour.
Okay.
Because I had filled in for Converge on that tour.
And they did that split, right? Or no, there's a it's Today's the Day Converge split, the Black Sabbath tribute.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
On Hydra Head?
Yeah. But, yeah, so that same summer, I filled in for Converge because Brodsky was touring with Cave-In.
Okay, yeah.
And, yeah, so then Jesuit was no more. Brian joined Dillinger, and I joined Converge.
It's like
that same summer is also the summer that I got banned from Gilman Street.
What'd you get banned from Gilman Street for?
The most stupid shit ever, dude. Jesuit played on that same tour.
Yeah.
Jesuit played at Gilman, and you know how at Gilman they have the big sign in the door that says, you know, no racism, sexism, homophobia. So I get that this was stupid, okay?
Yeah.
But it was obviously a fucking joke. It was tongue-in-cheek. It was meant to be sarcastic and ironic. And I got up there and I said, we're Jesuit. We're not racist, sexist, or homophobic. Girls with mustaches gotta go. Like, the immediate hatred that came back at us was like nothing I could have imagined.
You got everything shut down at that point?
Oh, yeah, man. I got banned. I mean, and like, I get it.
Yeah.
I do. It was stupid. It was just completely meant to piss people off.
It wasn't for fighting. It wasn't for stage diving.
Yeah, but like I said something offensive to piss people off.
I think that's the thing.
So I get it.
You go to Gilman, and it almost brings it out of you. You like you're there. You're like.
But I've been there other times, and it was like the total jovial mood, and you could do that, and people got it. But that day, I don't know what it was. That day, somebody just was not happy about it, and they refused to pay us. And a bunch of shit.
And Dillinger didn't get banned? Like
they weren't on it then.
Oh, they weren't on then, okay.
No, but Cave-In and Iyer played that day,
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was going to...
Gehenna played there all the time, though.
Yeah, Gehenna, that's the thing. There's so many unbelievably amazing Gehenna stories about them playing the Gilman.
I know. So it just, you know, whatever. It was funny. It was stupid. I totally get why people were mad. And now that's not something I would ever do.
Yeah.
Not because I would fear getting in trouble, but because it's just childish.
Yeah.
You know?
Back to that botch Jesuit Dillinger skate playing tour, I remember that tour happening, and that's like, you know, obviously before internet hype was a thing, but that was like 3 bands that were like all pitched to be like the next bands that were going to break out.
Well, 2 of them did.
Yeah, 2 of them definitely did.
2 to break out, 1 to break up.
That's true. Well, you know, like ultimately, you know, Dillinger, I guess, like, you know, there's just Ben from that lineup, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
You know, still in
it.
Yeah,
that's wild. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, like I think because it must just be Ben, right?
Yeah, it is.
Like,
it's only Ben.
And Botch, they only made 1 more record after that, right? Or 2 more?
They did We Are the Romans. Then they did the one...
Because that was just before We Are the Romans came out, right?
Yeah.
John Birch.
It was American Nervoso.
That's right.
Had just come out.
That's right.
Then We Are the Romans. And then they did that last one that I guess was more like a longer EP.
Yeah.
And it was all names of countries that America had been at war with, but they had M's in them. Like Japan and Afghanistan. That was clever.
That is unbelievable. That is wow, I guess I fell off, but I did not know about the M War record.
There you
go. Well, you got to play a show.
I do.
So I'm not going to keep you any longer, but I would love to have you back on because we didn't even talk about Converge or anything.
Yeah, let's talk all night.
Awesome. Like at some point in the future. But Nate, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, man.
I really appreciate it.
This was a blast.
I had a lot of fun. This has been a lot of fun. And there's going to be more fun in the future.
Yay.
Yay.
There's like... All right.
You want me to stop now? Oh, we can stop now.
No, nothing. Go. Let's talk.
Guys, this is awesome.
I know.
I forced you guys in the lobby to come up to my hotel room.
And I saw on Twitter the other day that when kids were asking you about guests, I was one of the guests, so I appreciate that this somehow came together.
I know, but I still, as Nate knows, there's a whole procedure to this process, which involves me asking you a very formal question about how you got into punk. And I want to have that with you.
Yes.
So I thought today, because Nate, we've done that before with yourself, and I want to have you back for a part 2. Why don't we just talk about records and punk?
Let's talk about punk.
Yeah, talk about music and stuff like that.
We were just in the midst of kind of starting a little talk about that as you were pressing record.
I was.
Yeah.
About punk?
Well, just like how, some of the heroes, quote unquote, have outed themselves as crazies somewhat. Mm-hmm. And like I think about that a lot, and I kind of wonder if, like, that early punk scene and attitude that, like, we all really looked up to fostered this kind of, like, paranoid thinking about the government and, like, Big Brother and all this stuff. And so now we've got these people who we saw as we were younger as, like, these forward-thinking, very progressive people, and it turns out that they're just totally fucking paranoid and, like, a little bit crazy.
Yeah, like, I think especially now as I'm getting older to these people's ages, and you're like, I think when I was younger, I'm like, they probably have a great insight that I don't have, and now I'm the same age or older than a lot of these people. I'm like, I don't think they had that great insight. No. I think it was just like, and also I look at the things that I cheered, like the violence, like the deliberate violence in bands. Like if a band was crazy and beat people up while they were playing, that was like the thing that sold me. Like, oh, they're a crazy violent band. Yeah. They're awesome. And then you get to a point where you're like, well, I don't know.
Yeah, that's not that cool.
I don't want to be that violent.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of bands are made up of, antisocial or maladjusted people, and that's just what you get. What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's I don't know. I think they are lunatics, but I also think that now with the sort of advent of technology, we're talking about the Periscope thing, sort of like the no filter thing. Mm-hmm. Was it you yesterday? Somebody said that that some of these like older band people that by older I mean we're old ass people.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm talking about
we're talking about the generation older than us.
Yeah, generation older than us that like still like
the punks and metalers that are like entering their 50s now.
Yeah, entering their 50s all need teenage daughters to teach them how to use Twitter or use or, you know what I mean? Like so
be like, Dad, don't post that.
Don't do that.
like Dave, put it down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like you don't need to respond to that comment. It doesn't matter. Like
and I get it. Like it can be infuriating, but like I don't know. A lot of people say that they have a thick skin, but nobody has a thick skin. You just have to choose to prioritize things.
Yeah, like I find especially with Twitter, and it's not like obviously now I'm kind of used to it, but at one point when I first got it, it's like the insult goes right to you, no matter where you are. And it's like, no matter how many nice things are there,
it stings.
It's that one that just like...
Yeah.
And you don't want to write back to the person and lash out at them. And you're like looking at their situation, you're like, oh, this person is obviously just lashing out because they want some sort of attention back. Mm-hmm. But it still stings. Like you can think about it and you're like, oh.
Someone can say something that is complete bullshit and like, just, it makes no sense. But it'll find a way into your head, and you're just like, really? Like they'll make some fucking stupid joke about how you look or something, and you're just like, that's what I look like, or that's what I sound like. That's what, and you're just like, fuck, man. Like, I just want to play these stupid songs and have fun, and I want you to have fun. Why does it have to be any more than that?
Yeah,
Well, it's hooks and barbs. It's thrown out there as sort of bait, and it's gonna snag to your insecurity before it snags to anything else, and nobody else is gonna pay attention to the fact that like that weird hair that was standing up on your head in that photo that was driving you insane, and that guy just commented on it and just made you feel like a pile of
like, oh great, I have body dysmorphia. Thanks, bro.
Yeah. And it's like, and it's weird because I guess it's also the fact that you have so many eyes on things now that people can pick up
all the little nuances. Like, you have a million different perspectives on every image, so someone's going to get the one thing you don't want them to get from that.
Yeah, and it's like the thing, you know, coming up in punk and hardcore, you're like not supposed to care about that.
Yeah.
But then when they're like little worms that just find a way into your head the second someone says it, you're like, really? I never thought about that. Is that what that's like? Is that what I'm like? What the fuck?
Do I really look like this?
Yeah, like,
I think, like,
I don't know.
If like someone was a pop star or a mainstream celebrity and they'd come through punk, I think that would give you, like you said, you know, it's got thicker skin, but that does toughen up your skin. Like, the backlash of the NME is nothing compared to the backlash of MRR. You know,
sure.
The
Well, because the backlash of MRR isn't just talking about superficial things, like the backlash of quote unquote MRR.
The broadly termed
punk.
MRR,
that's talking about your character.
Yeah.
And that's talking about just generally who you are as a person, and like you're, you know, in the eyes of the punk scene, you're a good person or you're a bad person. And it's like, fuck, am I a bad person? Like,
when a lot of things, when it started to turn, especially because it's punk, it's your friends doing it. You know, like when it's like, I don't know, like when it's some random person on Twitter, or when it's some random writer that I don't know, it's like one thing. But it's another thing when it's like someone who, when it comes from the punk community,
it's like, I know that guy.
I stayed at your house, dude. You stayed at my house, and now you hate my band. Like,
it hurts. I remember having anxiety over being interviewed for Heart Attack for the first time, or the only time, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I've never felt weird about anything. I don't give a shit about anything like that. Like, but like just the fact that like my sort of like creative being and something that I'm part of is now I'm like almost like thrown into like this. I'm thrown into this world that I respect a lot and I appreciate a lot, and now I'm gonna be like judged somehow. Like not judged in terms of not like artistic merit or creative merit, but just like this whole like sort of like ethical soup that's out there in punk rock, and you know, like where am I gonna float to the top or sink to the bottom and that sort of thing. It was really I was a kid then. That freaked me out.
Yeah, well, and as a reader of Heart Attack, you would see how like some little thing that was said in an interview would last for issues and issues and issues in the letter section, and you're just like, how is what I'm saying right now going to get picked apart?
Yeah,
like what's going to be the thing? The mundane, stupid, meaningless thing that I say that someone's going to take something really fucking minuscule out of and turn it into a molehill.
I think that was one of the reasons why that generation of punk rock and hardcore was absent of fun.
Yeah,
you know, because there really wasn't a true understanding of sarcasm and irony and humor. You know, people were too concerned with just ensuring that they were safe from those criticisms. You know?
And I think also, like, you look back at that time, and maybe I'm just thinking of a couple of people that really pop in my head. A lot of those people were full of shit.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of it was, you know, you look at the way the people acted and they talk a big game, but they were just as sleazy as...
There's a lot of that.
Most of them were the sleaziest people I knew.
Oh, like, I don't want to say most of them are in my case, but, like, definitely it seems like a disproportionate number of, like, you'd be at this festival and then all of a sudden the kissing circle would be someone getting awkwardly naked, and you'd be like, why is there a kissing circle at this show? What does that have to do with...
Yeah, what is a kissing circle?
Why is this older man trying to organize a kissing circle with all these younger... kids?
Yeah,
you know?
remember when shows would have debates instead of sets?
Oh my god,
that was a thing for a while, and you know, like, it's an interesting idea, but god damn, you're now putting some serious tones onto something that is, you know, otherwise an artistic sort of outpouring.
Yeah, it's like, isn't it okay for me to just like music? Can I just like the music?
I'm here for music.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'll take a pamphlet, maybe, or a zine, and, you know, like, appreciate it later.
I always really admired people's, you know, genuine care and feelings about specific issues, but I was always like, is this really, what is this accomplishing right now, other than making people not want to hear what your issue is? And then, like, ultimately, I think that and what you were saying about how it just wasn't fun, that opened the door for, like, all of the
fun. Or not
fun, like kind of meat-headed ignorance that came out.
The pendulum swung.
Yeah, it was just like, fuck this,
yeah.
we're doing completely the opposite. Fuck you, you PC assholes.
Yep, and then like, you know, if you try to reason, you get smashed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was just senseless, it's just dumb. Still, at the end of the day, music is the best thing that's come out of punk rock, you know? And
yeah, and that's the thing, too, is everyone tries to impose these grand meanings on everything, and it like on the hardcore scene or their politics or whatever, and it's just like, it's music. Mm-hmm. Just enjoy making music and listening to music, and enjoy that everyone here is here for that, you know. And it's people just they don't have a lot of meaning in their lives, so they try and make it out of being straight edge or being, you know, whatever.
And this might have mainly been a Southern Ontario thing. I'm sure it's probably way more universal than that. But at a certain point, all of this stuff, like kind of post-Propaganda, and not to talk bad about them, because I would say Converge and Propaganda are like two of those bands that have kept, obviously different ways, but on their paths, and have never let the people that like them down as far as the way they kind of handle themselves.
But some people might disagree with you on that one.
Some people might, but I think like, and, you know, but everyone's gonna have different opinions about how you should handle your band, right? But I'm saying like, it's not like you can't point to that Converge moment and you're like, no, that's where they tried. That's where they went for that sellout moment, and it's very obvious. And same with Propaganda, like they believe it, but
I think the same can be said about Fucked Up too.
Well, I believe me, as disciples of yourselves, that's high praise. But I think after those bands, it became almost like a marketing thing. Like, we're that vegan straight edge band. Like, not that Propaganda was a hardcore band, but like there was just so much. Like, it became just like another way to sell your band to someone.
Well, if you identify yourself as something, then you're immediately hitched to that train, whether you're like the middle car or the caboose, but you're part of it. So if you're a vegan straight edge band and you're like the kings or queens of that world, that's awesome. But there's like a whole, you know, like world under that that's always
well, it's an easy way to hitch yourself onto something and like have an immediate fan base, an immediate like, oh, this is what we are. Okay, so this is what our record looks like. This is the shirts we make. This is the band. These are the bands we play with. This is the way that a band that does this is supposed to do things. So like, and then you have instant audience.
I feel like our band, if anything, I don't think we were really truly a band. Like a fully realized band until we broke free of that stuff. Yeah. You know, and we started feeling comfortable in our own skins and just being like a true sort of collective, you know, individual artistic entity.
So when's that point for you guys? Because like from the outside, I'm sure it's different.
I'm going to say when Ben joined.
Yeah, I would say when Ben joined. It wasn't like a record per se. I think it was, you know, like when we first started as a band, you know, I wanted to start a band, so I started playing with like Jeff, our old bass player. We both like punk rock and hardcore, go to shows and stuff. Then we needed a guitarist that could play things that were, you know, more technically proficient than us. We met Kurt, and he could like rip solos at the time. He was the first guy that could play like a Suicidal song, you know, and it was awesome. You know? And then we found Damian, our first drummer, who was like, there was three guys in our high school that played drums. So one of them's going to be your drummer. You know what I mean? And the other guys are already in bands, so we got him. And we started, you know, playing out and touring, which is pretty significant considering we were so young, you know, like 16, 17 years old.
That was the time period, though. It was really easy to do that. I mean, you were playing in houses. You know,
like houses, little hall shows and stuff. And it was fun. But
my experience mirrors that as well with channels.
Yeah, and then but then we met you, and we met when Jeff, our bass player at the time, moved to Montreal to go to school. And
the IRE.
Yeah, he started IRE. That was his band. He started up there. And those guys would bring us up, and we met that whole world of people.
Yeah, because you never played Toronto for the longest. You'd just be Montreal, and it was like
Montreal and Quebec City.
It fucking infuriated us in Toronto. Just being like, why not?
It's because dudes had jobs. And
we're kids.
I know. Hey, now that I think that's the thing is like, you know, I meant to say this earlier, but like I relate to the hater side because I was that kid. You know, like this person that just had this complete tunnel vision of privilege as to why. Well, I want to see this band. Why aren't they here? Right. They have their own lives. Like there's other mitigating factors. They don't.
Sure,
I was the same way. Yeah. Like especially when you're like a young hardcore.
Exactly.
Hardcore is your life. You're like, no. If you're in a hardcore band, that's who you are. that's what you do. That's the only thing that's your only value in life, is that you are a dude in this hardcore
How
band.
could you forget the struggle or the streets?
Yeah, what the fuck? Come on.
I felt I felt personally slighted for a long time about like Boston folklore. Like I went to a show where Judge were supposed to play, I think it was Slapshot, and they didn't show up. And like the rumor was like that they were nervous to play, or there was like some sort of like mitigating like negative Boston versus New York factor, and you like held it like a grudge. You're like, fuck those guys, you know what I mean? Sick of it. I'll play every fucking week, and they're awesome. Why can't you fucking make it here? But when we were kids, though,
dudes have lives.
Yeah, dudes have lives. Yeah. Well, once we started, I'm gonna say growing up, we started getting older. Artistically, we're becoming better musicians and artists and whatnot. Started shedding members, meeting like-minded people like Nate, and then Ben. When we got Ben as a drummer, I think at that point we started feeling like a true unit rather than just kind of like a band idea that we were all kind of fans of. Even it was our band, but like you're not. It's not fully realized. Like. It's tough to feel really confident about what you're creating when you have like 3 different people playing with you at any given time, and it's just all pieced together. Like at the time I was working full time and going to art school too. It's like I had no free time to like really think about anything and try to like put like pen to paper and write lyrics and stuff like I wanted to. So it just took a while. So when Ben joined the band, he's technically our 3rd drummer. Because we had John for a brief time, who recorded the Poacher Diaries record with us and did one European tour that broke him.
That tour can break you.
Yeah, this was old
Europe too.
Yeah, this is
and
pre-Euro.
we were assholes.
We were assholes.
And we had assholes with us.
Yeah, I mean we're assholes.
Lovable
now,
assholes.
But we used to collectively be some of the hardest people to be around. I think if you were an outsider, like it was vicious. Yeah, vicious humor. Like, we really went against the grain when it came to that sort of thing. Yeah. But yeah, so
I joined like 2 years or 3 years before.
I would say like two.
98 was when I started. When I did that first tour with you guys.
Yeah, I told you that's the day my mom's dog peed on me, and I went and saw you guys with dog pee on me.
That's right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I came back from visiting my girlfriend at the time in Vancouver. My mom picked me up from the airport, and she just got a dog, and it was on my lap, and she dropped me off at the cathedral, and I'm like, this dog peed on me, and she's like, well, do you want me to take you home? I'm like, I'm not missing this fucking show.
That's great. That's awesome. Well, because Nate's previous 2 bands also toured with us too, so like it was almost like
Jesuit. Mike did the first ever Jesuit, not the first ever, but the disastrous Jesuit show in Toronto when you guys got stopped at the border. That was Mike from Fucked Up with Dillinger Escape Plan and Botch.
We didn't make it.
Nope.
We didn't make it.
Yeah, but
it's funny, like when you were just saying earlier, like about how you started playing out and started meeting people that were like-minded. Like I remember when we all met, and like I remember feeling like our bands were kind of kindred spirits, and there were a few others across the country that we were all just starting to venture out and meet each other. And I remember thinking, like, there's something about to boil over here. Like, there's a paradigm shift that's about to happen.
Yeah, there's
and I feel like we're going to be part of it. We're gonna make it happen.
Yeah, man. And thinking about some of those shows, like thinking about the bands and the creative people that were in those rooms at the time. Like, think about that, like Insane House show when the AC caught fire in Virginia when I got real sick. But, it was like Botch's first U.S. tour, like I think.
Oh, that's right, yeah. And
Jesuit and Conifera.
Yep.
And like just like some really talented, wild people in those rooms. I mean, it's just special stuff.
Yeah.
Boston was all like one of the weird cities that's able to hold.
It's always been weird.
So many different types of scenes,
and nobody knows each other. Well, everyone knows each other, but there's no places to play.
Yeah, like I think, but everything's weirdly connected. Like you'll talk to someone in like a, I don't know, some like crazy thrash band that's friends with the people that do Locking Out, or someone who's in.
Well, it's because for the longest time there were like 2 neighborhoods that everybody lived in.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So everyone they were all neighbors or roommates.
Yeah.
But it kind of started in the 90s though, that thing, because there's like, obviously Converge was always, I guess, the outlier until maybe later on. I don't know.
I think we still are in a lot of ways. I mean, like we're all really rooted in the community and are doing a lot of things, but like we're
sonically.
Not, yeah, but we're not like socially like like out like.
I don't know if outlier is the right word.
No, I mean not outlier, but I mean like back then in the '90s when I was thinking like there was the sort of Boston sort of more straight edge stuff that came out of that, and then there was like sort of like the Boston Network of Friends compilation with San Francisco bands like the Ducky Boy kind of
Those worlds are more connected than our world. I think the metallic hardcore and like more like
that was actually more of a suburban thing than at the time.
Yeah, I would say so. The straight edge hardcore thing has more in connection with like the sort of like street rock oi sort of like thing that happened later. Like
the metallic hardcore thing for the longest time was more rooted in like Worcester.
Yeah, and that wasn't really particularly close to us, but Boston essentially died. Like we lost the Rat and a few other venues that were open to having aggressive shows, and so there were lots of little spaces all over the place that would allow us to play. Well, it would be like shows like Ourselves and Overcast and like Dive. Dive were actually one of the bands that were peers that got out of Massachusetts before anybody.
Yeah.
Because they went and played Virginia.
We did the show. Yeah. It was Channel, Dive, and Josta 14.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And
we talked about that show.
We did.
And a lot of those people are obviously clearly still involved in music, and we're all, peers. But like, Matt Kelly's been in Dropkicks playing drums for.
Yeah, we had this exact same conversation.
Yeah, we're like, you think about the people in that room, and something, and like, we're talking about other shows where you have like, people like Eric Wareheim, comedy people. It's like amazing how, like punk just it draws so many interesting people to it. Like from all, and then they just wind up meeting each other there.
Sure thing. Yeah, no, I totally agree. But yeah, so Boston was weird. I mean, we all knew each other, but there was also another scene there that I didn't really feel connected to, but it was out there, which was like that like weird Alston Rock Wonder Drug scene.
Yeah, like Scissor Fight,
6L6.
Yeah.
What about that band Tree?
They're one of those.
One of those bands? Yeah, okay.
Tree were kind of there's a Sam Black Church kind of teetered between being they used to play lots of hardcore shows and we're probably one of the bigger bands in Boston. They were going to blow up for a long time. Them and Only Living Witness were probably peers together. Tree also was kind of part of that. They all Jonah from Only Living Witness and one of the dudes from Tree and a few other guys used to write a fanzine called Look Again. That was a huge zine at the time. It was a monster. It was like
I was in Virginia then.
Yeah. It was like a high quality, amazing like publication at the time, and they did like 6 issues. But that was like a defining thing where they blended a lot of the metal and hardcore and punk together. You would see like a review of Crackdown next to like Anacrusis and like Berserker and like Gorilla Biscuits show reviews. Like it was like really bizarre and cool, and there was a lot of bleed over. You would see the same faces at shows, but there wasn't like once we became a band, it was like fucking desolate. Like there were 10 people we'd be playing in like a machine shop or playing in like random fucking places.
Lemonster, the shop,
yeah. Like we play weird places like that, and eventually it kind of caught on, but it was grim for a while,
It was grim everywhere around then, though, man.
Yeah, it was. There was definitely like a paradigm shift.
Yeah, like I don't know. That's probably about the time I started first going to shows in Toronto, and it was Chokehold was obviously happening in the suburbs a little more, or not suburbs, Hamilton.
Yeah, they had a New England connection. Their drummer married a girl that ended up moving out there.
She used to do New Bedford Festival.
Yeah, she's one of the girls that did that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like they played a few times down near us and stuff. And yeah, I mean Boston was always an interesting place. For me, it was magical. There was like a golden era of shows between like 90 and 92, 93, where Sean McNally, he used to do a thing called Cringe Productions, was like the main promoter, and he did some of the best shows ever, and he brought every awesome New York band, Byrne's first show out of New York, like Into Another. I felt like Sick of It All played every other week.
So who are the Boston? Is it like STP and Berserker? And like
Berserker was Tom's band. They were a pretty big deal. But before that, there was the New School Melodic Hardcore thing, which I think was probably the biggest, most exciting thing that happened. And they kind of that world was about like a three-year world in between the rise of sort of Slapshot in that world. hardcore, which is like the classic bands. Then the melodic stuff came up, which was like Kingpin, Third Degree, Said and Done. They were all kind of peer bands that played together a lot. Another Wall were part of that. Burn, when they came down, played more with like bands like that than they did with.
Well, Al Quint, was he in Kingpin?
No, Al put out
He put out their record though, right?
Al did Suburban Boys.
He had a band though too.
He wasn't in any of those bands. He put out records though.
His band was called Shattered Silence.
Shattered Silence.
Yeah,
okay,
he did it. Yeah, he put out a.
And they just played some reunion shows.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, Al was. It was really interesting. I would see Al was sort of like one of those people that were mythical to me, where I would see from afar, kind of like when I would see Choke from afar.
Yeah.
And I would see like a Slapshot Boston jacket, or like Mark McKay walking through a crowd and be like, "Oh my God, that's Mark McKay." You know, I would see Al, and I didn't feel like a connection with Al. I felt like a generational shift, because he just seemed older to me.
Yeah.
And so I just never really connected with him, although I followed his, zine religiously, and I remember like reading the Leatherface Slapshot European Tour diary over and over again for like, forever. But yeah.
What a weird tour.
Yeah. But it was, all that stuff was like hugely important, but it was also like a bit fractured. You just had basically a lot of creative people, a lot of colleges there, so you had a lot of people coming together and just happening to be there, being creative at the same time.
Is that why there was a turnover every couple of years because people leave?
For sure. Yeah.
So,
definitely. I mean, I should sometimes there's periods in Boston where shows would have 2,000 people, 1,000 people, and then summer comes and there's 175 people max, because it's such a transient city.
Yeah.
But the melodic hardcore time though, that 90 to 92 kind of era, was hugely important. That was like the biggest boom of like just enthusiasm over stuff, and that's when you saw like the sort of like rise of like moral and ethical awareness in hardcore and punk rock, especially there. You had, because all those melodic hardcore bands for the most part were all straight edge bands in some way. It was all like the flat brim hat, triple XL T-shirts, pointy guitar music, like
Turning Point clones.
Yeah, Turning Point clones. Yeah, there was, you go to like Jersey and Pennsylvania, and you would have like Flagman and Encounter and all those bands, and like, they all wanted to sound like Verbal Assault or something, but we're less. They're just kids. We're all kids.
It's funny that scene hasn't been taken up. Like it hasn't had like a resurgence, but
I think it maybe has a little bit.
I want to sort of. You have like interesting newer contemporary bands like Give and stuff.
Yeah.
That they kind of have a little bit of a. It's almost like their interpretation of the Revolution Summer era thing, mixed with like a little bit of Swizz and Lifetime.
I feel like a band like Give is looking to like the turning points in those bands, but instead of just drawing straight from them, they're actually looking at, okay, what influenced them.
Sure. Well, you can imagine their perspective. Like, even if you're a 20-something-year-old creative person, you can go back and see this amazing library of like creative punk, and that it has like so much weird depth and like in tone. Like they have so much to pull from. So it's always going to be, I think, just a new sort of almost improved in some ways versions of what was there. I mean, sometimes bands miss the point, but there's every once in a while there's a band like that pops up that sparks my interest a bit.
It's funny because like you look at and obviously Give's an amazing band, so I'm not using them as an example of this, but like you get to this point where you now have bands that are able to look at the history of music from all over the world.
Sure.
So you're not going to get like the rise of the melodic hardcore in Boston, or like this little scene that starts. Like not as much regional identity.
Well, and those are like truly natural things that just happened. Like you just they just spontaneously occurred. Like because Kingpin, who were arguably the biggest band in Boston at the time, they could play next to Slapshot and Sam Black Church and Only Living Witness and all sound completely different, have completely different characters at the time. But all those bands were so like hugely important, and any of them can play with any New York hardcore band. It was interesting. Boston was a weird place for a while. We did have like the meat and potatoes metallic hardcore stuff too, like Berserker and stuff, and there was some crossover stuff where there was a metal band, Malaya Rage, that was kind of like a 90s thing, 89 to 90s, that like almost got big, I don't know. There's just Boston's a weird spot.
It's weird because with the exception of Slapshot, though, none of those bands like they Get Out. Obviously, I have the Kingpin records.
Yeah, but they don't actually get out. Right.
Like they don't. None of those bands.
Well, that's why when I mentioned Dive earlier, and then probably I would say like later Ourselves and maybe Overcast before they kind of imploded and then became all the other bands they are now. And that I mean, if you think about that, like. I know we're talking about this like little microcosm of punk rock and hardcore, but after Overcast ended, that creative world essentially spawned the new wave of American metal.
Yeah,
that's now, and it's like they took what they were doing and infused like At the Gates with sort of like almost like pop hooks and sensibilities.
I'd give it to them.
Lamb of God,
who were Burn the Priest at the time, and Darkest Hour.
That's it. And you give them all Slaughter of the Soul, and there you go. You have what is now like what people term metalcore.
At the Gates, and kind of like when people were I associate At the Gates and Converge probably because I was in Alex from Acrid's car and she had a Converge split tape with At the Gates on the other time. But like the At the Gates, and obviously played with them and stuff at this point. But like they're one of those bands that probably aren't going to get that Rolling Stone article about them. But like the influence they had on underground music, it's crazy.
Yeah, and it's amazing how much people don't like. Even people who At the Gates are their favorite band. It's amazing to me how much they don't get them.
Yeah,
like
they're more punk than
they are so much
think.
more punk than people know.
They really are, and that's what first time I heard him I was like, wow, Tampa sounds like fucking Millie from Creator. But there's like these like really cool like
I was like, these sounds like the dude from Disrupt.
Yeah. There's another
seminal
Terry from Disrupt used to play Black Sabbath covers in my basement with my brother.
Wow.
Because my brother's a drummer, and they would just come over and jam, like all the time. Terry gave me like the first Disrupt 7-inch and demos, and he had a friend Greg that was like a big thrash guy, and gave me like he would give me like weird like New Red Archives like grindcore cassettes. Give me like a Wehrmacht cassette. Gave me like the Unseen Terror demo. Just lots of random shit. It's like, so I was exposed to like that stuff and like Destroy when I was like, like 14 years old, 13 years old. So like that, and that was a whole nother world. Yeah. That was like not really like, where were those shows happening? It was like, those are happening in basements in Lawrence and Lowell, Mass. Yeah. Like nobody, like, they're playing, those bands are playing with like, I don't even fucking know.
Did Disrupt ever get big? Like, did they?
Disrupt became a cult band.
They never got big.
They never got big actually for it. It's like
that LP came out eponymous.
Yeah,
it did. Yeah,
and that record is so good.
There was a Disrupt Destroy split, and there was the 7-inch with the elephant with his missing its face on the back.
And there's a bootleg with the McDonald's.
Yeah, that was a sticker the McMurder thing that they put out everywhere. But yeah, they kind of dropped off, and then Terry started Grief.
Oh that's another band.
Yeah, Grief got bigger
later,
quote unquote bigger, because at the time period there's no such thing as a big doom.
Southern Lord didn't exist, and so like there was no.
You had like Theologian and Pessimizer and like Reservoir and like that whole world.
Yeah, there was like a dark.
Was it 213?
Bovine.
Yeah, Bovine.
Yeah, there was like this sort of like dark, kind of crusty, kind of doomy, kind of.
I love that scene.
That little scene. That's the same. It's very similar. The rise of that is very similar to our. Like it kind of mirrors our little world too, where like there was this really small. I mean, I remember like Cry Now, Cry Later EPs with like
the double 7-inches.
I Hate God and Floor on them, and it's like. They were these little bands that played to no one, and like it's crazy to see the influence that grew into having.
Do you remember a couple years ago when Suppression came back and they were like going to become like a big kind of like metal band for a second? Like they were like
Ryan Parrish was playing drums for Suppression. They played a show with us.
Yeah,
where was
they played at the Flood Zone whatever the place with the balcony was. It wasn't on a festival. We headlined there, and Suppression played like second or third. I can't remember who
in Virginia.
Yeah, in Richmond, and they were fucking killer.
Yeah, they came back and they were almost like going to cross over and become like not a major label, but like a mini major metal band or like type thing. And it was so weird. It's like This is the Theologian band.
Yeah, this is Suppression. I remember seeing you guys in basements.
And I think, Theologian, isn't that the one that Fletcher from Pennywise bankrolls?
Is it? I don't know.
Because the first Pennywise 7 inches are on Theologian Records.
Really?
Yeah. The first 2 singles.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure.
I don't know, man. Sure. That's like...
But there's so many cool things. I just thought about that, the connection too, like a bridge between like bands like ourselves and like that World of Doom and whatnot was like CR and Black Army Jack and stuff.
Jesuit
was kind of in that mix too. Yeah, like so
Spaz.
Yep, yeah, for sure. Like that whole world of kind of. Remember, Newthrush came back for a while. I remember that.
Yeah, Newthrush played Roadburn with Old Man Gloom a couple years ago.
Wow,
they were good.
Sorry, Newthrush. I think they were on Southern Lord. Didn't they do like a reissue on Southern Lord?
I think there was a collection of some kind, right?
Like that's the thing about this era. There's so many bands that like didn't. I don't know. Maybe they did for other people, but for me, just like they were on my radar, but I just wanted more. And now we're in this period where you can get like everything.
You can get everything.
Yeah, like what else? Like I Abhor Her. Yeah. Like you remember that they were awesome.
Do you remember maybe even Groundwork? Later era Groundwork was sick.
Yeah.
Do you remember that band Green Machine? They put out a record on Man's Ruin.
2 records, Green 2 LPs,
and a split 7-inch on Bovine.
Yeah, Green Machine was great.
So sick.
I saw their last show.
You saw them?
Yeah, Doom Riders played Wizards Convention in Tokyo, and it was Green Machine's last show.
Oh,
they were fucking awesome, and they were totally not what I expected.
Did they have electronics on stage?
No, dude, they we were playing this like stoner doom festival. It was like Eternal Elysium played and like all these other bands, and everyone's got long hair and vintage amps and like everyone, and then we played and everyone like, just acting like shitheads, and then Green Machine played, and I'm expecting these long haired, gnarly looking dudes looking like bikers and beards and shit. And they were straight up punks. Like, they all walked spiky hair, fucking docks with their jeans pegged. And I was like, whoa. Like, these dudes look like The Clash. And, like, they were fucking awesome, dude. They just killed it. They went nuts. And, like, they were a total punk band. Like, not at all what I expected.
It's always interesting. Like, those mysteries don't really exist as much anymore.
Yeah. Well, and that scene then, especially, like, all that weird Japanese stuff was totally, like... It was before Boris became popular in the States. It was before any of that stuff had made it over.
There wasn't real coverage of it anywhere.
There was like Green Machine, Corrupted, Boris.
Corrupted.
So sick.
Yeah, like...
Hellchild?
Hellchild, Church of Misery. But all of those bands were strictly a Japanese thing. Yeah. Like they were just starting to leak over into the States through like... little like a split with somebody,
like
or like a lot of
Hellchild.
Like that's when I was still like into tape and CDR trading, and that's like kind of when I was finding all that stuff.
Yeah, like Slap-a-Ham, and that kind of rise of like being like a hardcore like connoisseur. Like you like I'm into Japanese stuff, and like I'm also into the Scandinavian stuff too.
Yeah,
but to me, Japanese hardcore is still like there's still so many mysteries about so many of these bands.
And so many good bands.
So many good bands. Have you ever watched Giesen videos on YouTube?
Are you kidding me?
The flamethrower and stuff in the crowd. You're like,
bananas.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Nightmare. And
Nightmare's incredible. Bastard.
Yeah, Bastard, UG Man.
I wish Danny Lilker was
Death Side.
Yeah.
Death Side was fucking
Death Side's incredible.
Yeah.
I don't know, like when we went to Japan, all we've ever done is like we played our own show, which had no openers, unfortunately. And
they do that.
Yep. And then we played Fuji Rock, and then we played like the Hostess Weekender with Dinosaur Jr.
Let's go to Japan together.
I would love that.
All right.
Oh, let's go to Japan.
We'll send some emails when we get home.
Let's fucking... Yo.
We do cool things in Japan.
Let's wait till winter. Let's wait till there's a fucking gnarly ass winter next year. Yeah. We'll do the Japan, Australia, New Zealand thing again. So we have a vacation tour.
You know what?
Converge fucked up tour. Done.
Well, do you guys have to get ready to the airport? Do you want to talk about it?
No, man, we're good.
You gotta get out of here soon. You
got 10 minutes.
I got 30 minutes to get to my set. Well, you know what? Why don't we call it now, because I want to have both of you on in the near future.
All right,
cool. You guys aren't coming to Toronto in the near future, so we'll have to go over Skype probably, right?
Sure.
Yeah. I'm always sitting
all
at my
right.
desk.
Well, this is awesome. Thank you for taking your last few hours in Austin.
Otherwise, we would have just been sitting in the lobby.
Yeah. Boom. Thank you.